Welcome to another Eating Alive Minute. So we are going to talk about gluten and understand what is gluten, and for that we are going to show you what is the composition of our grains. So when we look at grains, 70 to 75% of them are made of starches, that's the carbohydrate part. 1 to 2% are lipids, this is the fat part, and 10 to 12% are the fluids, the water part we could say, and 6% are made out of protein. Now, out of this whole 6% of proteins, we have three different kinds of proteins: albumins, globulins, and 90% of all of the proteins are made out of gluten. Now, two of the main fractions of gluten is half of them is gliadin, is half of them is glutenin. Now, most people who are sensitive to gluten, they are mostly sensitive to gliadin, and most people who are evenly sensitive, that means their symptoms come out 30 to 60 years later, this is the culprit of gliadin which they are sensitive to. Now, how does gliadin look like in bread? So when you look at basically the bread, and when it's rising up with some gas which being produced, gas bubbles, and after 2 hours of rising you can see actually the gluten under the microscope, and these are the stretchy fibers which making actually the bread and the dough very, very stretchy, and you can try that yourself. Just stretch the bread and you can see it's flexible. What are the gliadin containing grains? These are wheat, and it's in all forms, even if it's refined or wholemeal flour. Everything which is made out of wheat flour will contain that. Barleys, rye, grain alcohols, all of them, that beer, whiskey and vodka will contain that. Oats, and oats is basically the most tolerable one. So if people are off from gluten for a few years, they will be able to eat gluten as the first grain possibly. And all Mediterranean and African grains are couscous, triticale, amaranth, kamut, spelt, and quinoa do contain gliadin. So what is the real the problem with gluten gliadin? So when you look at the molecule, it's a large protein, and normally an enzyme is supposed to break this down. And this is the enzyme, the transglutaminase enzyme, to break this bridge down, to straighten out the molecule. So basically that's what is being digested. So from there on, the body can break it down to smaller pieces. Since this enzyme is not working, it forms a complex with the gliadin, which is not anymore recognizable for the body, and it basically becomes a toxin. And since this is a toxin, any type of toxin on the part of our in the gut surface will be creating inflammation, and every inflammation will be healed by scarring. So just imagine all those years of eating gliadin and gluten from wheat and grains, what it does to your gut basically. Lots of inflammation. And when the immune cells can't compromise and break them down also, this inflammation and scarring is a constant vicious cycle in the body. As a consequence of a constant inflammation, we got some damage in the gut, and this is on our microvilli in the gut. I'm going to show you a microscopic picture later. But if you look at this one, these are the gliadins, the immune cells, and slow by slow are going to erode. So when the microvilli are eroded, basically they have a flat surface in the gut, and that could affect the gut in patches. So parasites and gluten and candida and bacteria can start grow here. On those areas, there are not much immune cells and probiotics anymore. Furthermore, on this surface, there are no immune cells. All these bacteria and viruses and parasites start to dig holes in the gut wall, and these holes are going to be a surface to go to the blood. So these will be the tunnels where the parasites and bacteria and actually food particles which are undigested will be going to the blood, and this is called the leaky gut.